sector update on languages and post-secondary education. So I'll now ask Julia Canlish, Director of Education, to please come up and present when she gets back in the room.
Oh, yeah, let me go get her. She might be outside. It was in camera, right?
Yeah. So she left the room because we were in camera, so now we're just waiting for her to come back. Okay, please welcome Julia Canlish, Director of Education. Thank you.
Like this. Hey, is the presentation going to be up on the screen? Oh. Could we put up the education presentation, please? Oh, there we go. Okay, hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Julie Canlish, the Director of Education at the Chiefs of Ontario. And today we actually wanted to provide some information on the post-secondary education engagement review that is taking place. Because we were anticipating that we were going to have a resolution brought forward on post-secondary education, but unfortunately, we didn't receive all of the executive summaries from all of the partners, which I'll explain in the presentation. So we will just provide you an update at this particular time. So it'll be an update on post-secondary education, and then I will be speaking about the issue of AFN relations in regards to education at the Chiefs of Ontario. So next slide, it just talks about the topics. We'll have an update on the progress of the post-secondary education engagement final report, as well as COO education sector relations with the AFN. So looking at the post-secondary final report, I just wanted to, I can do. Backwards. Okay, here we go. When we talking about the post-secondary engagement final report, this started back in 2017 when Indigenous Services Canada announced a plan to review Indigenous post-secondary programs. And then the Assembly of First Nations completed a review and made recommendations that First Nations develop regional models associated with post-secondary education. So funding was provided in the amount of $7.5 million nationally to conduct engagement regionally in 2019. So it was provided to us over 3 years to do this engagement and develop regional models. So the Chiefs and Technical Committee at the Chiefs of Ontario, formerly known as the First Nations Education Coordination Unit, agreed that engagement would be conducted by the provincial territorial organizations, the independent First Nations, and unaffiliated First Nations, and COO would support the activities. So I'm going to work 2 slides here. So these are the partners that were part of the post-secondary engagement committee, and they were conducting engagement within these organizations and communities. So you can see the Indigenous Institutes Consortium was also involved, and then some of the unaffiliated First Nation communities, as well as the PTOs and the Independent First Nations. The role of the Chiefs of Ontario in this engagement was really to provide stakeholder presentations to the committee. So that's to the partners that were involved in this, and to conduct research and also assist with any engagement activities and initiatives, and provide supplemental reports, and also compile the final report. So the stakeholder map that was used to determine who was going to be coming and presenting at the committee meetings. This talks about some of them: Indigenous Institutes, Children in Care, parents and guardians, community members. So these were many of the stakeholders that were involved in the engagement process and the development of the final report. The methods that were used to engage with these stakeholders were interviews, focus groups, policy analysis, information sessions, document analysis, and surveys. The final report consists of background information. It's about 80 pages long as it stands right now, but it contains background information. It includes recommendations, overarching recommendations for Ontario as a region, whereas the individual reports by the PTOs and other partners in this project, in this process, will include more detailed recommendations associated with their own organization or community. The final report outlines the methodology used to conduct the engagement, and also background literature. There was a literature review and some supplementary documents that were provided about various topics that were related to post-secondary education. And then there's a section called What We Know, which is the executive summaries of the partners that were engaged in this process. And that is where we are lacking 3 of the executive summaries to conclude this final report, which is unfortunate for this assembly that we didn't have it quite completed. But we will, we'll talk about what the next steps are later on, but we will try to make sure that we are able to move on the recommendations as soon as possible. The supplemental reports that I was speaking about include socioeconomic analysis, a children in care, literature review, data governance, and the post-secondary student support program policy analysis. They're all very interesting reports, and I'm sure it'll be very informative for communities and organizations moving forward as they move into developing their own models for post-secondary education. The recommendations include the overarching recommendations in the Chiefs of Ontario report is with regards to post-secondary costs funding, as well as transitional programming, administration, informational, and relationships. They're all very detailed recommendations, and they can be found in the report. I believe the report, the executive summary of the report, that is missing 3 executive summaries. So the draft executive summary report was provided in your packages. However, the recommendations, even with the additional executive summaries, will not change. Those recommendations were agreed upon by the committee as a whole. So the next steps in the post-secondary process are really to finalize the report with those 3 final executive summaries, and then we would review the final report, bring it to Leadership Council. There would likely be a resolution brought forward at the next Chiefs Assembly. And then we would, once it is ratified by the Chiefs in Assembly, we would then submit the report to Indigenous Services Canada. Then finally, we will be working as once we get approval to move forward on the recommendations, we will then begin working on implementation and assisting or supporting First Nation communities and organizations as they develop their regional model, and then moving forward on the recommendations in the report. So that is an update on what's happening with the post-secondary education review. Then what we wanted to speak to you a little bit about, there is going to be a resolution coming forward on this for your consideration. It's the COO Education Sector Relations with AFN. Now, the AFN Committee, Chiefs Committee on Education, is mandated to provide political direction, advice, and recommendations on educational matters affecting First Nations to the National Chief, the AFN Executive Committee, the Confederacy of Nations, and the Chiefs in Assembly. That comes directly from the terms of reference for the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education. The composition of the Chiefs Committee on Education at the AFN is that there's one political representative appointed by the regional chief from each of the 10 AFN regions, and the national chief is an ex officio member of the Chiefs Committee on Education, as well as an elder is appointed by the AFN. And finally, one of the key parts of the terms of reference for the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education is to ensure that any decisions and recommendations reflect a national perspective and take into consideration regional variations and processes. And this is where we found an issue with the way that things were decisions were being made at the Assembly of First Nations. So this is a chart on what happened, how we got to where we are today. So first, in April of 2020, the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education passed a motion regarding a new allocation methodology for the post-secondary partnerships program. And this is funding that supports our First Nation institutes of higher learning in Ontario. We have 9 Indigenous institutes in Ontario, and they are all supported through this program. That decision in April 2020 resulted in a loss of $1.6 million annually for our Indigenous institutes. And we opposed that particular motion very strongly. However, they still moved forward with it. And then in November 2020, the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education voted for a new allocation methodology for the Education Partnerships Program that would result in a decrease of $4.3 million from the allocation for First Nations in Ontario. Thankfully, Indigenous Services Canada did not accept this proposal this recommendation from the Chiefs Committee on Education, and we did not lose this funding. We have not lost this funding in Ontario yet. But as a result of those particular decisions, in November 25th, 2020, COO withdrew Ontario's representatives from the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education due to a lack of consideration for the funding needs of First Nations in Ontario and a flawed decision-making process that pits regions against one another. In March of 2022, the Chiefs of Ontario Leadership Council accepted recommendations from the COO Chiefs Committee on Chiefs and Technical Committee on Languages and Learning, outlining suggested revisions to the terms of reference for the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education as a basis for repairing relations and reestablishing participation at the national education tables. The recommendations, the recommended revisions to the Chiefs Committee on Education terms of reference were that no decisions should result in reduced financial resources for any of the 10 AFN regions unless there is an agreement in the region to accept the reduction. The list of Chiefs Committee on Education representation should be updated regularly and be publicly accessible. Composition must be updated to reflect accountability structure and how this process is followed, because the accountability structure seems weak within the terms of reference. Ontario should be allocated additional representation based on the size and uniqueness of the Ontario region. Communications to First Nations must be included under accountability, and that the chair is a voting member creates a conflict of interest. So these were the issues and concerns we found with the Chiefs Committee on Education terms of reference, and these were submitted to the Chief Executive Officer at the AFN as well as the National Chief. But unfortunately, we haven't had any response at all. We have had some discussions that this issue was going to be dealt with on a National Executive Committee meeting. However, it hasn't happened to date. So the Education Portfolio Holder and the Chiefs and Technical Committee on Languages and Learning in Ontario wanted to put forward a resolution so that we wanted to make sure that First Nations in Ontario were aware of what is happening and also were able to provide support for this activity moving forward. So what the resolution calls for is that it calls upon the AFN National Chief and the AFN Executive Committee to meet at the next available opportunity with representatives from the COO Leadership Council to review and discuss the recommended revisions to the terms of reference for the AFN National Indian Education Council and the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education, and ensure relations are repaired and COO participation at the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education and the AFN National Indian Education Council are reestablished. We really feel that our non-participation at the AFN is cause for concern. We do not have a voice at the table at the present time. Often we sit in as observers, but as observers, we're unable to voice the opinion of First Nations in Ontario. We do work on a bilateral basis with the Indigenous Services Canada on various tables. However, we are not funded or provided the appropriate resourcing to do this work at the national level on our own. So it is cause for concern, and certainly we can answer any questions if anybody has any questions regarding the resolution as it moves forward. Thank you.
Miigwech Julia. I would like to ask if there's any questions for Julia as we have her up here. Okay. Any questions? No. Thank you, Julia. So I'd like to move on to the next thing on the agenda. This will be a working through lunch. So we have our boxes of lunch that will be provided. And I'd like to call up Adam Fiddler to start our resolution. Oh, sorry, I'll get back to the questions. Mike 1.
Chief Williams, Chippewas Verema. There was no resolution going to be tabled before lunch. I'm leaving. That's why I'm asking. And I was moving that particular resolution.
Yeah, we're doing this resolution right now. The
You're
first
doing it
one.
right now?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not the indication I was getting there. So
Sorry.
that's why I'm up here.
Yeah. So Adam.
Thank you, Chief Williams. So we're doing the resolution dealing with education. We'll do that first. We have 3 resolutions that made the deadline, and then we have 1 resolution that is a late resolution. That'll be up to you whether you'd like to entertain that. So again, potentially 4 resolutions, and then we'll start closing the assembly. So the resolution, if I can have it, put it up on the screen, please. Resolution dealing with this last presentation is Chiefs of Ontario Education Sector Relations with AFN. The mover I have on the list here is Guma Stacy Laforme, who is not in the room. I don't think Chief Laforme is on virtually either, so I would need a mover. The seconder is present. Obviously, Chief Williams is the seconder. So I will need a mover for the resolution. It is in your kits. It is in front of you. It's on the screen. So in order to entertain the resolution, I will need a mover, either in the room or virtually. The resolution is titled Chiefs of Ontario Education Sector Relations with AFN. Oh, sorry, Chief Knott, you will move it. Thank you. Chief Knott will move the resolution. So again, you do have the hard copies. The resolution is also up on the screen, so I will not read the preamble. So I'll go right to, therefore be it resolved that we, the Chiefs in Assembly, number 1, request the Coup Leadership Council to exercise their authority as outlined in the Coup Charter, Appendix B, Leadership Council Terms of Reference number 38, to appoint LC members and others to represent Ontario First Nations on various AFN and other committees, fora, and entities, while ensuring that there is a pathway for coordination while respecting the roles and rights of First Nations as the actual rights holders. 2, call upon the AFN National Chief and the AFN Executive Committee to meet at the next available opportunity with representatives from the Coup Leadership Council to review and discuss the recommended revisions to the terms of reference for the AFN National Indian Education Council and the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education, and ensure relations are repaired and Coup participation at the AFN Chiefs Committee on Education and AFN National Indian Education Council are reestablished. Number 3, require the Coup Leadership Council to report back to the Chiefs in Assembly on progress related to this mandate until it is resolved. Chief Knott, any comments on the resolution? No comments. Chief Williams, microphone number 1.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, miigwech to Julia, for the presentation earlier on. That captures basically the situation that we are currently in, which is actually detrimental to all First Nations in the province of Ontario. And so I think it needs to be corrected, and look for the support on that motion. Miigwech.
Miigwech, thank you, Chief Williams. The floor is open. Again, I have to call for 3 opportunities. The floor is open. Make 1. Go ahead.
If I recall correctly, the regional chief never had any authority to pull out of the Education Council, but it was a sort of a unilateral decision, as I understood it, because of the allocation of funding for the Ontario region. So how does this resolution address the equity for the Ontario region with the funding? Because that's what the whole squabble was over in the beginning.
Your response?
So the way it is addressing the inequity for funding for Ontario region is we want that embedded into the terms of reference for the Chiefs Committee on Education and the National Indian Education Council, that any recommendations they're putting forward cannot result in a loss of funding for any region across Canada unless that region agrees to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Miracle, and thank you for the response. The floor is open, virtually as well. Second call for any comments, questions. I see none. Last call. Any comments, questions on the resolution? Do I see none? If not, do I hear a question? Questions being called? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Actually, while we're doing that, can you keep your hand raised? I just want to make sure we have quorum. Yeah, we're okay. Thank you. Any opposition to the resolution? I see none. Any abstentions? I see none. Thank you. Resolution is carried. So I'm going to turn it back to Kieran for the next resolution.
So the next resolution is Resolution 2240S. Subject is support for core funding of Indigenous institutes in Ontario from federal government of Canada. Is our mover Chief Mark Hill in the room? Okay, we'll need a second mover. Do we have our seconder, Chief Leona Nawegabao? Well, if I could get a mover and a seconder in the room? Can I get a mover? Support for core funding of Indigenous institutes in Ontario from federal government of Canada. A mover or seconder? Anyone online? Miigwech. Seconder? Chief Chief Miracle? Okay, so thank you. Okay, I'll read the therefore it be resolved. Support Indigenous post-secondary education institutes across Ontario as they present their submissions to federal budget 2023 and future budget cycles to deliver equitable long-term core institutional support. Number 2, direct the Ontario Regional Chief and Leadership Council to advocate and issue a public statement drawing attention to the urgent need for core funding and the need to recidify historical underfunding in a manner consistent with self-government and the positive economic impact of Indigenous institutes on local community economies, skills, and labor markets across Canada. I'd like to ask if the mover has anything to add. Thank you. And the seconder? No? Any questions? Second time calling questions. Questions? Any questions? Questions called. All those vote in favor? Any opposition? And any abstentions? All right, resolution's carried. So the next resolution is Resolution 2241S. Subject is First Nations response to Ontario's employment services transformation. Our mover, Ogamakwe Rachel Manitowabi, she's in the room. Our seconder, Ogama Bob Chiblo. Bob here? Yeah, okay. I'll get to the therefore be resolved. Demand the government of Ontario remove employment service delivery or management responsibility on reserve through the system services managers process and commit to expanding the exclusion to ODSP recipients who are resident on reserve. Number 2. Call upon the Chiefs of Ontario to advocate and demand the Ontario government exempt First Nations from the SSM's process and now beyond target 2025 implementation date. Demand the government of Ontario include the contracts with SSMs, a clause that First Nations or a group of First Nations assume responsibility for the delivery of OW and ODSP to members resident off and on reserve, and that the SSM vacate its responsibility for employment services to First Nation member residents off reserve. Number 4, direct First Nation ISETA and Ontario First Nation Ontario Works program to provide an update to Chiefs in Assembly in June 2023. Number 5, affirm that this resolution is without prejudice to any other work undertaken by First Nation or First Nation organizations who are considering alternative mode of social assistance and or employment supports delivery for their members. I would like to ask if the mover has anything to say. Mike 2, Rachel Manitowabi.
Miigwech. I just want to say that this particular resolution does not duplicate the 2020 resolution regarding social assistance and ODSP. This resolution is specific to the employment service supports and a network that has evolved over the last 20 years between First Nation Ontario Works administrators and the ICETAs. This network is being threatened by the province's attempts to modernize delivery of employment supports. It undermines treaty relationships First Nations have with the Crown, and this modernization attempt is an example of the systemic discrimination of our people, the effects of cultural oppression since contact. It includes cultural genocide and the effects of the Indian Act, residential school, 60 Scoop, and all the effects of all those effects on our First Nations in regards to unacceptable unemployment rates, child protection rates of Anishinaabeg children in care, and yet the employment supports and early learning childcare are being threatened by the Ford government. In its plan to modernize, which suits their agenda at the expense of ours. I just wanted to say it as a side note that while I stood with Chiefs yesterday with respect to their significant issues, I also understand the alliance required by Ontario Regional Chief to advance our issues in his work every day. I spoke to the same issue yesterday with regards to our children, and while Premier Ford was next door to us, I spoke of the needs and the issues addressing our children, and if I'm completely honest, I would rather speak about those issues to my fellow chiefs in Assembly rather than a reception for Premier Ford. But I do understand the work that Ontario Regional Chief needs in his alliance, in his daily work to support the Crown Indigenous relations. As a side note as well, I would also recommend that children's issues are dealt with first when we're in Assembly. And I think that that's an important process that we might consider for future gatherings, that the children's issues are at the top of our agenda. So, miigwech.
Miigwech, Chief Manitowabi. Would our seconder have anything to add? Yep. Miigwech. Questions? Any questions? I'll call for the third time. Questions? Someone call questions. Questions been called. All those vote in favor? Yep. Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right, resolutions carried. So there was one more resolution on the agenda, but that resolution has been pulled. So I'd like to start the closing. And I'd like to bring up OFNYPC member Caitlin Peters to come up and give the youth reflection.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Caitlin Peters. I represent the Muncie Delaware Nation, and I'm really happy to have been here in Assembly with all of you, and I'm really happy to have met a few of you as well. So it's been a week filled with important updates and discussions. We talked about child welfare, mining, long-term environmental issues, education, legislation, and of course, the reception with the Premier. It seems like there are plenty of work that needs to be done. Hearing the chiefs walk up to the mics and share their thoughts and their issues that are going on in their communities on these topics are extremely valuable to me as a youth. As youth, we carry and share these thoughts and issues that are faced by our people to other youth, to other community members. We share these thoughts with our families, as well as to our non-Indigenous kin. Whether we share these thoughts to our non-Indigenous kin in a school setting, in a government setting, to our friends, to our teachers, our coworkers, we are happy to share these thoughts with anyone who is just really willing to ask us and listen to us, the youth, about these current issues. Over the past few days, I've noticed there's one thing in common that all of our leaders have, which is passion for who they are representing. That is a quality that I really look up to. It makes me look at myself and reflect on why I am here. Then I remind myself that everything happens for a reason, and the privilege being here makes me stronger as a future leader and leader of today. Although I am just a youth who is really just in the beginning stages of her life, watching you all speak so passionately and assertively influences me to keep chasing the spark within my own life and endeavors that I am pursuing. Just like you all, I too will eventually be called to speak on behalf of First Nations issues in the capacity setting that I am meant to pursue, which is eventually medicine. So thank you all for your kind words and your words of influence, because they have truly really touched me, and I've been absorbing everything that you guys have been saying, whether you realize it or not. And so has the rest of the Youth Council as well. So thank you all for being here. I'm really, really happy to have been here, and I hope you all have safe travels on your way home today.
Miigwech, Caitlin. I'd like to introduce Elder Barney Baptiste for his elder reflections. Miigwech.
Yeah, this makes it really easy. Everything she said, okay? No, there was a couple of things I was supposed to do yesterday, and it was just something that happened on one of the First Nations in the north at Fort Albany. And you know the young man that was here yesterday, Danny Matadawabin? He asked me, give me some tobacco, and he says, would you mind doing this for me? And it's another suicide in the north, you know. And this one here involves one of the students that were in North Bay during the time I was a director at the center there. And this young man that was there, when he left North Bay, educated, whatnot, got married, had a child, a young man, and the young man commits suicide. This young, the father is Jeremy Edwards, and the son was Paul Edwards. And he said that moving forward, we need to understand more in our home communities about what's going on. We should not forget ourselves as treaty people. And in closing, he said, you know what? His father had to cut him down, hung himself. Can you imagine that? Impossible. As a father going in, find your son, and you have to cut him down. You know, it was years ago, there was a book, and it had the picture of that rope where the person had hung himself. That's quite a while ago. And when this man told me this story, it reminded me of that. What, all over again? So we need to think about what Danny is saying, think about what's happening in our home communities. I think that's a good, that is a good thing. This morning, when we had our sunrise ceremony, there were 11 of us there. There were 6 men and 5 women and 1 empty chair. And I suggested to the people that were sitting there, the Creator works in mysterious ways. And the empty chair really reminded us of all the women that are gone. The spirit of those women that are gone were perhaps talking to us, an empty chair, and representing all those we lost along the way, missing and murdered. And so it was a reminder. And I asked the people sitting around to take that story and put it out there. Put it out there so that it's a reminder to us all. Because we did say we're going to honor and stand behind our women. It's a good lesson for us. And so the other thing that I thought about as we were moving along with our meeting was the idea that, and I mentioned this this morning in our ceremony, and what we should do is we think until we feel. And when we know, then we speak. If you remember those 3 things, we'll get along much better, I think. Think until you feel, and when you feel that you know, then you speak. And I think that I learned from other elders, so it's so good. And in terms of the things that happened here over the last couple of days, let that be a lesson to all of us. Just let it be a lesson. Think about it. Let's not let that happen again. Let's avoid it. Because it does us it does nothing for us. We just need to, you know what our elders say? Get along. Let's get along. Let's just move along with the things that we have to do. God only knows. We have so much to do at home. I have lots to do at home. So we just have to do that and get along with it. And let me tell you, what happened here today is not an isolated incident. We're having a tough time getting along at the national level. We're having a tough time getting along here and some of the local PTOs. What's happening? Don't know. A change, and I'm saying maybe the 2 years of the pandemic, working in isolation, might be the cause of it. Maybe, possibly. At least it's a notion. And if it is so, then we just have to rebuild of getting back together again. The notion of being with somebody and making decisions. So there's a couple of things too that I would like to close here with. Recognition. Look at the simple things, the easy things. I'd like to recognize Chief McLeod. He was here practically every moment of the meeting and having input where he needed. And he wasn't afraid to say what was necessary. He's leading by example. And there are others as well, other chiefs that did the same thing, led by example, by being here and doing the work that he was instructed to do by his nation. We all need to do that as chiefs. It's necessary to speak with one voice. And so that is my message to you. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our elders there. One lady sitting over there, she gave me notes. Perfect. You wouldn't believe it, the things that she wrote up. A1. Couldn't be any better. It could have been done by a consultant, a lawyer or whatever. The words that she put on paper. Great, just beautiful. And so there are elders that we can listen to and continue to do that. And I really thank my colleagues. It's really good. I think they deserve a little bit of a hand for those of us that are left here. The other acknowledgements, of course, is for the staff members of COO, and I think RC would agree with me. They run the show. They're in the background, but they're doing it. And each and every one, we saw them running around here doing all their stuff, so they deserve a lot of credit as well. I would be really remiss if I didn't say that the RC been a tough 3 days, but guess what? He's still here. He's still doing what he needs to do, and he did address us. And I think what we do is just support our leadership. It's that simple. We can do that. So for myself, on a personal level, I just want to thank you again for allowing me to be part of your life for a while. It's healthy for me. It's good for people. I'm going to be 85 in February, and I feel good. And keeping busy makes me even feel better. It's people like Chief McLeod that keeps me going. I just like listening to him. I honestly, I do. And my young man to the right here, I watched him when he first started to to be the speaker, way back when. And I saw him kind of doing this, doing that, and running back and forth and getting mixed up with it. But now look at, we just had in the last 3 days what I would call excellent chairmanship and speaker. He deserves really a big hand, this guy here. Okay? And remember what I said at the beginning, no one wins alone. No one wins alone. You either need the creator, you need somebody, but you can't do it alone. It's very, very difficult. Don't even try. If you're a little bit troubled, ask the creator. Be humble. Ask your partner. Ask somebody. You'll find help. Guarantee you'll find help. Don't try to do it alone. It's hard. I've tried it. I failed. You can't do it alone. So again, I thank you all. And you know, like all the other elders mostly, and people that I know could stand up here and talk for half an hour easily, maybe a little bit more. I'm not going to do that to you, because I think it's time to go home anyway. I think everybody's ready to go. So thank you very much. And again, when oh yeah, I want a round of applause for the staff. That's what we need. Yeah. Can it be louder? Can it be louder? A little more? Almost forgot, you know, because those are the ones that pay me my honorarium. I should. They should be on top of my list. Again, thank every one of you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Miigwech Barney. At this time, I'd like to ask our Zoom member, Pat Oakes, to, oh, you said no. Okay, never mind. There's a couple more things on the agenda before I close. So all our chiefs were handed our special Chiefs Assembly Child Welfare. The date is for December 5th, 2022. The Chiefs of Ontario will be hosting a special Chiefs Assembly on Child Welfare in Ottawa, Ontario, December 5th, 2022. And it's at 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern at the Westin Hotel. And you all have that handed out to you. So keep that date in mind. At this time, I'd like to ask my fellow co-chairs, Adam Fiddler and Leslie White-Eye, to come up and say their closing remarks. Thank you.
I just want to express that it's been a complete honor serving you in this assembly, the chiefs, the delegates, the elders, the youth, having the sacred articles here. As a former chief, it's definitely a whole different ballgame here on this side of the table. So I really appreciate the respect that was shared and the ways in which the discussions, they were tough at times, but they were respectful, and everyone got a chance to speak and say what was important to them. So I want to just say miigwech to the elders who took care of certain things. I know along the way that sometimes we don't see right up front of us. I know they're looking out for us throughout these assemblies. So miigwech to you all, and it's been a complete blessing. Miigwech for having me.
Miigwech, I also would like to say thank you. It's been an honor to be here in the last 3 days, and actually really proud to see our leadership have the discussions, important discussions, heartfelt discussions, talking about the issues that are affecting our community. So miigwech, thank you for the privilege of being here. It's been an honor to work with speakers Leslie and our youth speaker, who did awesome. I'm very proud of Kieran. Give him a hand. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Adam. As this is my first co-chairing position ever, I'd like to thank you all for being patient and kind to me. This is also my only my second Chiefs of Ontario Assembly as well, so I'm still kind of getting new to this, but I'm loving every moment, meeting everyone that I meet. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Ontario Regional Chief Hare for his closing remarks. Miigwech.
Oh, miigwech. Our elder said I don't want to be like the other elders and take half hours, so I'm glad he only took 28 minutes. Keget, miigwech kenin de kit. Wanda shende dem de jikani ganzijik. Kina wanda gens isn't so chimiigwech. And kitag ejik squang them de jik miigwech. Kegi no get sijik. Chimiigwech kenin de kit. Manake kina gemak. Manashende gabibin sijik. Dan makko nem kina. Gogis pi, manda pi mana. Qui mounted me. Book said mark gemak. Manda win one and then queen kazna. Mounted in gemak. Nino shiga topan geni mad beamanash da sundan chim. Shinango bijam chano. Gay no when the go up ski, chick says about mudbook. Me just same gok shinagad about them, to quitting epi. We begin. As I on gums it all, he's been skitting me out of my gain and go gizis shop to be. And I kinna kayame, Manda Christmas edge godek. Snugget Manda P kinna, mem to get quitting and dodging. Will send me him see when and an angden dizing. Nash go gizis P, Mina Adwak and mounted me. Abdagna than a shino de. Dan is shingo. Kapskozi me. Nash niebing, yet nang quick mounted me. Nan, we need on zo, people not questioning, niebing. Ni shing wouldn't king kashame. As none pinny gain nungo, on gomzeda, chiot, Kashgomajin chiot, Nimna dabana nignang yauk, wilk, mibzok, on gomzeda. So chiefs, speakers, youth, staff, elders,
our delegates, our visitors, our citizens, Chimiwech. It was awesome again to meet. In a month's time, on the 13th, we're meeting again as leadership in person in Toronto with the government. The papers I delivered, you delivered, asked me to deliver to the government last night. The response to those hopefully will be there at the table for us and for the chiefs then to ask the questions directly. The ministers and the premier. And we'll see where that goes. It will be chiefs online and us in person down here. Because we don't have the budget to have another one, but we need to have these meetings. Ottawa, let's think positive, strong, hopefully work and get things done. As I said, we'll reach out to National Chief. Let's do it. We have lots of things to move. Christmas, hard time for our kids. We heard it here a number of times. That box in front of me here, in front of us, yesterday, we got $890, and it's still something there right now that will go to the food banks. After April 1st, that's when all our budgets come in. The Leadership Council meeting will meet in Thunder Bay. So hopefully we can have a full quorum. And then in June, Nanny's hosting the assembly. So placing the place, that's their choice. But they are the hosts, and we'll be going up there. So again, I wanna going home today. Be careful. There's loved ones waiting for you. So your time this year was full. I do believe a lot of things. I know a lot of things had moved. They did. They really did. But we got a long ways to go. I really want to honestly say, I think me anyway, as I'm trying to help, it's not moving the yardstick anymore. Now I want to believe we're moving it in kilometers. And I stay with that. So again, with that, prayers and thoughts to your communities. A lot's happened since we left. From my family to yours, our prayers. You got you.
Miigwech, Ontario Regional Chief here. Now I would like to bring Pat Oakes in for a closing prayer, and she's on Zoom.
Sego, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Okay. You can hear me okay? I can't hear you.
UNCU.
Okay. All right. Sego, Sawagwego, Ganagwaza Dana Padok Young Guts, Waxkalawaga Dana Akwasasti Ni Nedawagino. Greetings, everyone. My name is Ganagwaza, my Mohawk name, and my other name is Pat Oakes. I'm Bear Clan, and I come from the Mohawk community of Akwesasne. I'd like to acknowledge the Eagle staff, the elders, the youth, the Ontario Regional Chief, the chiefs and participants, and I'd like to acknowledge the great job of all the chair people there today. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you, but I was with you through Zoom. And I'd like to acknowledge my brother, my Ojibwe brother Barney, and for the good words that he always imparts on everybody at these gatherings. And I agree with him that as long as we always keep the 7 grandfather teachings in front of us and we use them whenever we have difficult discussions, we will always make it through and be respectful to one another. So, Nyawa Miigwech. Now do our closing. Onu Ona Nua Onamwa Najik Dawadi Nika Liala de Yati Nistaha Ohunja Ji ne Atia Kutka Wenhage Jinahodo Yon Kyonhogwe Yat Shunhan Yat Ji Sego Yonkis Nege Ji Niunji Skahulia Ani ne Sakag Watogo ne Jion Hojade ne Yonki Awizo ne Unkwasu Dana Kaliato Sunji Nikalawes Ohunjige Tionkwa Tawali Nagadi Ono we Yoli Wat Wake Ji and Tewatka we ne Kanu Walado Shila Etonio Dunhak ne Unkwaniguntla. We are thankful to our Mother Earth, the Earth, for she gives us all we need for life. She supports our feet as we walk upon her. It gives us joy that she continues to care for us, as she has from the beginning of time. To our Mother we send greetings and thanks. Now our minds are one. To Sagrion Jizo, Gizi Manadu, Great Spirit. Nyawagoa Chimigwich, thank you very much for your help, care, wisdom, and guidance throughout this assembly this week. We are sincerely grateful and humbled by your presence. While we've been participating in this meeting, we are sincerely grateful and thankful for you taking care of our families. We greatly appreciate everything you provide for us and never want to take anything for granted. We ask that you safely guide those that have traveled here to Toronto and to protect everyone here and their loved ones. I'd like to express peace, love, and kindness to you all, and a safe journey home in good health. Nyawa Miigwech, thank you. Be well, be safe.
Miigwech, Pat Oaks, if I could get our staff carriers coming in. And the drum will close today. Miigwech. Meeting's adjourned.
I'll be back here.